Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled Steal Grandpa's Parking Spot, Big Regrets. I guess that these a-hole neighbors are really starting in on the older generation, thinking that they are easy prey. Let this story be a lesson not only to the neighbor, but to anyone that thinks just because someone is old that it means that they are an easy target to go after. Personally, I think the older generation are sly, crafty, and don't like to let anything go. My grandpa is one of these types of people, and as a retired Vietnam vet, he really does not want to let nasty people get away with being that way. Now, the title alone might make it sound like my grandpa is crazy or something for doing this over a spot, but let me explain first. Now, my grandpa lives in an apartment complex and shares a parking lot with all the other residents. Everyone who lives there gets a spot, some can just be closer to the doors than others. It is not unheard of for sometimes people to snipe good parking spots as soon as people leave. The few spots near the door though are assigned spots and are given to residents that are disabled and actively need to be close to the front entrance for obvious reasons. Grandpa with his age and a bad knee results in him needing a cane and getting that parking. One neighbor that lives in the building though just does not seem to get the message and constantly is trying to steal these spots. Now it is clear that they are marked with permit only, and he has been told many times that he cannot park in those spots. Still, whenever Grandpa goes outside, he notices that neighbor's car is parked where it really should not be. So he decided that he was going to be the one to confront him when he parked in another renter's spot. Grandpa, you are not allowed to park there, you know. Neighbor, mind your own business, this is my spot. Grandpa, we both know very well that you don't have one of the permits only spots. The real owner of that spot can call and get you towed. I have no idea if that was true because this man had been doing this for ages and never once got anything more than being asked nicely not to do it again by the building manager. So it was probably an empty threat, and all it really caused was neighbor to decide that my grandpa had the spot that he wanted the most. After that, no matter where Grandpa went or for how long, he would come home to find neighbor in his spot. Even if the neighbor was in a different stolen spot, it was as if he was always watching, and when Grandpa moved his car, neighbor would run out and move into his spot. If you don't think that this guy was being a complete jerk, then you might be more of the problem than of the solution. Anyway though, I know you want to know what caused Grandpa to finally turn it up to 11 when it came to revenge. Well, Grandpa had been seeing some random dents and dings on his car since that event and could never prove that it was the neighbors doing it. One day though, he ended up with his entire rear fender smashed in and blue paint being left behind. Neighbor had the only blue car in the lot, and suddenly his front bumper looked slightly damaged. Grandpa was parked too, so it was obvious that neighbor had moved on to actually damaging his car. You might ask why Grandpa did not call the police or go to the building manager. Well, he did both, and the police said that he did not have evidence that the damage was caused by the neighbor, so they could not really do anything. And since the lot was privately owned, they would need a call from the owner of the building to have a car towed. So Grandpa went to the building manager, who basically said he did not want to get involved in the feud and was not going to be the parking lot police. That did not really leave him with too many options, and like I said at the beginning, he was not the kind of man to mess with in the first place. He was going to decide that he was going to park in this spot, and he did not really care if the neighbor was already there. Sadly, I don't have the details of how it actually happened or how he managed to basically get the cars in that position. However, the next time he went out and came home, he found neighbor's bright blue car once again sitting in his spot. Grandpa parked in his spot anyway, and someone with his bad knee managed to get himself out and safe from what was now sitting in the spot. The bright blue neighbor's car was now half underneath my grandpa's black SUV. He figured since his car was already damaged, he really did not care anymore and just wanted to teach the neighbor a lesson. He did not want to miss the fireworks though, so he sat outside on one of the benches and pretended to read a book until neighbor finally came outside and saw what was going on. According to Grandpa, his face turned bright red as he was yelling at my grandpa about his car being destroyed. He chose this moment to act like an innocent old man that did not know what was going on, as a crowd was forming and watching a 30-year-old guy yell at this old man with a cane. Obviously, it did not take long before the building manager and police to show up to see the commotion. They all walked to the cars and asked my grandpa what happened. He said that he just parked in his assigned spot and that is all that he knew. The police obviously did not believe him because there was no way it was done without knowledge. But they also did not arrest him. They had to get 2 tow trucks to take care of the mess and get both cars out of there. Grandpa did not mind having to pay for the tow and for repairing his car because he knew that neighbor learned not to steal other people's spots after that. I don't know if anything will come from this in the future, but I do know that the neighbor learned his lesson and stopped parking where he shouldn't once he got his car back and fixed. I still don't know if he thought that he was never going to get caught, never get in trouble, or just honestly did not care. He thought that my grandpa was just some old guy that was going to roll over and give neighbor what he wanted. Instead, he took what was rightfully his after warning the neighbor that he should not be parking in other people's spots. The bottom line is that if anyone out there thinks old people are a good target, think again. You might end up getting some revenge served onto you that you deserved in a way that might not be the most conventional. And Ripe Stars, I would love to hear what you think about this story. Do you think that Grandpa went a bit too far, or that what he did was just right? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate if you could also like the video, because recently we pretty much always hit over 1000 likes, which is absolutely amazing, and it would be awesome if we could keep that up. Thank you so much in advance. The next one was posted on r/Ripe Stories by user LoveBugHugs and it is titled Challenges. Isn't it funny how time seems to speed up as we age? Maybe it speeds up to help us heal from the changes and challenges life seems to throw at us. I like to believe this is true, only God in the heavens above really knows. This earth we all live on and share is filled with billions of humans who all walk on different paths. There's also many beautiful gifts that God has given us, animals, plant life, foods, and sadly there are also evils and greed that have taken control of many humans. My friend Autumn and I have witnessed a lot of everything, from things that gave us warm fuzzies and things that gave us nightmares. Please allow me to share with you, dear readers, of a moment in time, so please take a flight with me on Yesteryear Flight 1991, a year of challenge. We will be visiting South Korea for the second time, however this visit we will be welcomed with open arms. To explain a few things, Autumn and I had over the past few years been attending training with station orders. These orders were meant to train us with other countries' military, as we will be working with them from time to time. The perks with station orders: we got to visit and sightsee countries, try new foods. Station orders were considered working vacations and I blame them for me picking up bad habits like skiing the Alps, tulip shopping, pastries, chocolate, wild animal watching and more. I picked up a lot of habits. The thing about working with different military units, the idiosyncrasies and nuances. Another thing that tends to have a major impact on visiting different countries is microbiology. Those teeny tiny ickle microbes that seem to have devilish agendas. These sneaky evil invaders seem to love to wreak havoc at the most inopportune times. Then to add to the microbic warfare, each country had their own immunization requirements. These factors made for the perfect storm, a microbic trifecta of fun. When we landed in Seoul, South Korea, it was in a post-war state. Its economic standing was poor, its citizens were in need of help. The young adults were protesting in the streets, it was chaos and pandemonium. We flew in about a dozen cargo planes packed to the gills with foods, medical supplies, sanitation supplies, even toys and candies for children. We were met with open arms. The older people demanded to help us load up our transport vehicles and choppers. They were not bothered in the least with our M16s hanging on our backs. It was as if they only knew war and strife. Truly a soul-crushing thing to witness. They were so thankful we were there. It was truly both heartbreaking and heartwarming to witness. We had a total of 9 teams of 14 and split the 8 teams into 3 zones. 3 teams each zone of Gojang, Songnam and Chuncheon. Autumn and I were assigned to a mountainous zone of Chuncheon. We had 9 Chinooks packed with our wares and we set off. We were about 60 miles, about 100 clicks from the DMZ and had a US base nearby, so we felt a little safer. We landed and started unloading when we were surrounded by people wanting to help. Some were so elderly that they were walking with sticks. But they refused to be turned away, they demanded to help. So we found the lightest items to carry, toys. Our hearts broke into a million pieces watching them tote their bags. We loaded up our transport vehicles and these same people followed us on foot. We chose to walk with them. We made it to the first small village nestled in a valley surrounded by mountains off in the distance. The villagers surrounded us with hugs and tears. We immediately got busy setting up our tents and unloading our supplies. Again, these beautiful souls refused to let us do all the work. Not once did anyone beg for anything. These people essentially had nothing, and yet they were trying to share with us their own meager possessions. We got right to work passing out foodstuff, toys and candies. As we passed out items, we also started giving medical assessments. We were fortunate to have 2 dentists with us, so we were able to give more comprehensive care. We were also busy teaching techniques, so not a day went by that we had to complain of boredom. By the 3rd day, word had spread to the surrounding villages. These people walked to us, some having walked a day or more to reach us. We had more supplies choppered in. It turned into a massive undertaking of rendering care and teaching. Then one day, our teammates started becoming unwell. It started with the military units that were escorting us, and then as the hours passed, care team members became unwell, which were members from other countries. They were dropping like flies. Sudden onset of vicious symptoms. We were not equipped to medically treat the ill. By that evening, only 13 of the 42 care teammates were standing. Even the escorts were down. I was by this time the ranking officer and had to call orders. The villagers were all okay, so we knew that whatever was attacking us, it had to be immune related. I radioed for backup and was told it would be 6 to 8 hours before help would come. So I asked Autumn if she could fly a Chinook. She curled her lips, smooshed up her nose and wrinkled her forehead and then said yes. I gave her a side eye and she retorted, "Of course I can." So we loaded up all the sick onto transports and drove them down to our choppers and loaded them onto one chopper. We propped up the least ill chopper pilot in the co-pilot's seat and I sent them off. They landed at the base near Chuncheon. Autumn flew back with more spare pilots to fly the rest of the choppers out. Autumn and a couple soldiers drove back to find us. The 12 of us left standing, busy still giving care. We decided to pack up and leave earlier than planned. We passed out our parting gifts of parcels of seed packets so they could plant various vegetables, packed up our remaining supplies we were not leaving, tents and such, and drove back to Chuncheon. When Autumn and I made it back to Seoul, we learned the other 2 zones were also down and out. Out of the 208 of us that started this trip, only 29 of us were left standing. The rest were seriously ill with bacterial infections. They were stabilized and care-flighted to a West Coast US base hospital for care and quarantine. We, the lucky 29, were also placed in hospital quarantine for 3 weeks. And now the fallout. Autumn did not have her ass handed to her, thank God, for flying the chopper. She was instead commended and offered flight training to complement her already decades-long history of flying. I was questioned on my reasons for not waiting for backup. When they, our brass, understood how fast they became ill and how quickly they became dehydrated, that we were already seeing slight convulsions in a couple of the stricken, they concluded that I made the right call. Phew. For a while there I thought I was going to have my ass handed to me and then be drop-kicked all the way back to the day I was born. We spent our time in lockup playing cards, eating bread and water, hospital food, and sleeping the hours away. To say we looked bored was the understatement of the century. Those who were ill spent almost a month regaining their health, but everyone survived riding the porcelain bus. All of us eventually caught planes to take us back to our countries or states, to wait for our next orders and the adventures they would bring. To you, dear readers, I wish you happiness, health and peace. Live your lives with kindness, goodness and love. Try choosing the path of forgiveness and long-suffering when faced with people who are cruel or offensive. Try finding joy, peace and faith in the small things of life. God bless. The next one is titled Rude Customer Revenge. So, I work in a big clothing store. Since this is the last week before Christmas and our store is pretty big, I expected to have more people on a shift to cover up everything. But I was wrong. The amount of customers is double compared to other normal weeks, so we are pretty understaffed. Yesterday I was working at the changing rooms. My job was to keep them clean, make sure that people are respecting the pandemic guidance and putting back the clothes left by the customers. There were many customers, a huge line and a lot of frustrated people. But I was doing quite a good job. As I was minding my business, a lady shouts to me from the last changing room. "You there, bring me an S for this skirt." I went there and she told me that she has the perfect Christmas outfit in mind, but she needs an S for the skirt she was trying on. I told her that I will bring it, but she will need to be patient since I have a lot of work to do. 5 minutes later, as I was ready to go and bring that skirt, the customer once again shouts, "Where's the skirt?" I once again go there and I nicely told her that I was about to go and bring it. She says, "Forget it, I will bring it myself. Looks nobody does any work in this store." I nicely explained that my job is not to bring clothes to customers, but to take clothes from the changing room and put them back, but I wanted to be nice and do her a favor by bringing that skirt. She said something about me being useless and goes back to change. At that point I was really annoyed with her entitlement, so I went and took the only S left from that skirt in the entire store and I booked it for myself. The store allows employees to do that during work hours, so it was not a problem. As I went back to the changing rooms, I saw that lady hysterically searching for an S. I will put the skirt back right after Christmas. And indeed, ripe stars, I gotta say, I don't envy anyone working in customer service for Christmas. Seriously, during the Christmas rush people are even more rude than usual, so it has to be an absolute nightmare to have a job like that during that time. And the next one is titled Christmas Revenge. This happened a few years ago, but now that I am no longer with the company, I don't care about sharing. I was working retail and was the most senior sales associate and had been working at this store for over 8 years at that point. It was the holidays and obviously the store was insane. I had put in to not work Christmas Eve as I had closed 2 years in a row and had bent over backwards that season for them, not to mention the whole seniority subject. I get my schedule and I am working until 9 PM on the 24th. They did it because I could count the tills, thereby making their night easier. Normally I would have just bitten the bullet and worked because confrontation makes me anxious, but this year it was different. My aunt had terminal cancer and would not live to see the next Christmas. My managers were well aware of this and scheduled me anyway. This is where the revenge comes in. Now, I knew I could not call in sick without repercussions, so I planned this out way in advance. I have screwed up joints that dislocate very easily. My ankle is the worst due to past injuries. So, a few days before Christmas, I pop my ankle in and out a few times. Don't recommend, my ankle is already messed up, so no harm, no foul, and I was in no physical pain and I knew it would not cause any real damage. This obviously makes it really swollen. That afternoon I went to a walk-in ortho clinic and they said I could not work the next 2 weeks at least. I hobbled my way into work with my boot on and a doctor's note in my hand. I told my manager I tripped down the stairs and would let her know when I would be back to work. I collected all my sick time and they were down their most senior associate, who they relied on for basically everything for 2 weeks during Christmas. This sounds a little extreme, but it was the best decision I have ever made. It was a lovely Christmas. I lost my grandma that April and my aunt the following June. The regret I would have had if I had missed the last Christmas with two of the best people in my life for a store who did not give a crap about me would have been unbearable. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.